The day that wrestling games fans have been waiting for. AEW Games revealed themselves and revealed what their actual plans are going forward. This has been a project that has captivated the hearts and minds of so many wrestling game fans, basically since it was announced that AEW, there was a video game even on its radar. But did this event live up to the hype that I was certainly expecting it to have? Or did it fall a little flat, something that we've all been too used to as of late? Let's discuss. So I'm going to be talking here assuming that everyone watching has seen the reveal event. If you haven't, go watch it. It's about 20 minutes, and it's an easy watch because it involves some people that are, just fun to watch, fun to listen to. So the thing obviously opens up with Kenny Omega doing a Steve Jobs impersonation, which I thought was very funny, and that is a motif that continued throughout. It opened with talking about how great AEW is and how much they've accomplished, and AEW tends to do this. I think it's a little bit of a little brother complex from AEW, and I should say right off the bat, I love AEW. I watch it religiously. I've been waiting for this event, so I'm not ragging on AEW at all. It's my favorite wrestling company in the world right now. But I think given who actually started it, Cody Rhodes, who was really shafted by WWE, for lack of a better word. And then you have the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega coming over from Japan, and that split was not amicable to say the least. And so I think AEW kind of has this a little bit of a little brother complex where they want to show that they are on par with what New Japan and WWE are doing. And certainly from an in-ring perspective, if you watched Full Gear, they are right there, probably ahead of anything WWE is putting out. Anyway, so that's how the event kind of started, and then they went into this funny joke about how they wanted to go back to like the No Mercy era, a game that they kept name dropping, and they had this pixelated gameplay, quote unquote gameplay, which was really funny. And Kenny says, yeah, we realized this sucked, we had to go back to the drawing board. It was really funny. Kenny Omega is such a funny dude, and so he really sold this well. But look, you guys aren't here to hear me talk about the actual event itself. You hear me to talk about what was revealed. And obviously the big reveal is the thing I'm going to get to last. So, skip ahead a few minutes if you want to get straight to that. But I'll keep the rest of it quick, because honestly, the rest of it was really not that interesting. Like, when you look at it, the big gameplay reveal, I think the game that pretty much everyone here is going to be most excited about, came just over 5 minutes into the event. And that was the really big thing. The rest of the event was getting to what else AEW Games does. And so bringing out Aubrey Edwards, who's been a video game developer, mostly on the mobile side. And she revealed a mobile game. And then Britt Baker reveals a t-shirt, which I thought was just an excuse to have Britt Baker out there, who I really like. I mean, Britt Baker's awesome, so I got no problem with that. It just was kind of weird and out of place. And then you have Cody. Cody had the line of the night where he said,
I'm not signing this unless you make me the head of AEW Games.
That's what I said to you.
And then, you know what Tony said?
No, you back away. What are you doing here?
He said no, because you don't know shit about video games.
It's true.
And I said, that's all right.
It's true. He's like a retro gamer.
I'm going to sign the contract anyways.
But then he reveals the casino game. So let's talk about these other two games first, because there were rumors that there was multiple things being revealed, and so now that we know what they are, the casino game, I think, is just kind of a throwaway. I really like casino games, and kind of the attitude that they were going with is really cool. So I'm kind of envisioning a game where you can play all the different casino games. You can shoot craps, you can play poker and blackjack and all that kind of stuff. And maybe you'll get, some voice cameos from different AEW wrestlers and stuff like that, which to me is exactly what I look for from a mobile game. It's the kind of thing that I would play while on the train, or whatever it is that I'm doing while I'm waiting around for something. So to me, that was the more interesting of the two mobile games. Revealing the GM game, All Elite General Manager, that's what it's called. Look, here's the thing. I love GM mode, and I know that tons and tons of you also do. So to see this, I had two reactions simultaneously. One, hey, this is pretty cool. I mean, we're getting GM mode, and GM mode is cool. But 2, is this the only GM mode we're going to get? Did they say, did they, them and Ukes, who's developing the console game, did they say, look, GM mode is a massive undertaking for us to put in this game. It's going to cost this much money. It's going to take this much time to develop. Do you want to do that? Did they say, no, let's strip GM out and put it in a mobile game so that people can have GM mode? If it's that, then this, to me, is as bad as anything that EA does when they strip features out of games and then give it back to us in a mode that we don't really want. Again, GM mode on mobile is cool, and if it's a companion to the GM mode in whatever console game is coming, then excellent. I think that's awesome. Get more people. Look, mobile gaming is a huge market. I don't play much myself, but like my mother plays mobile games all the time, and she's not a gamer at all, but she plays mobile games all the time. It is a huge market. So if you want to put it out there, let people get introduced to the AEW brand and introduced to wrestling games to then move over to play full-fledged GM mode on their console release, great. But if they said no GM mode on console release, here is your mobile game, I'm going to be pissed. I'm really going to be pissed. But I'm not going to make a judgment so far because we don't know anything about the console release. Let's get to the console release. That is obviously what everyone really is here to see. I don't think that many of my viewers are big mobile game players. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments if a lot of you play mobile games, because I'm absolutely, like I said, I am not a mobile game player myself. I'm absolutely willing to be proven wrong about how many people are really interested in this GM mobile game. I wasn't personally, but if you are, let me know. You know, I think any game is a good game, and as long as one game does not affect the quality of another, then I'm all down with it. Which is why I said, if there's a GM mode also in the console release, then great, fantastic, I'm all for it. So speaking of the console release, the very first thing that you see is, after the AEW logo, is Ukes. Now, if you don't know, Ukes was working on the WWE 2K games for the last 6 years, I want to say, that they were doing that. They've been making wrestling games forever. And they were with WWE 2K, and they were responsible for 2K19, which I think is great. I believe they're responsible for 2K14, if I'm not mistaken, which is my favorite wrestling game ever. I know that's scandalous, you know, given the content of this video, what we're going to be talking about. Regardless, so Ukes has been around for a long time, so Ukes is a big get for AEW, if not a little bit predictable that, you know, Ukes left the WWE 2K franchise, which then obviously released 2K20, which put it was an absolute travesty and put the whole franchise in the hole pretty much and forced them to skip a year. And I mean, if you've been following wrestling games, you know the whole story. So I don't think it's coincidental that AEW started talking video game shortly after Ukes left WWE 2K. So this, to me, was expected, but still great to see. Lots of text during the reveal. Now, here's the first thing. First shot, you get a look at what the character models actually look like. I had a reaction that was more, again, because I love AEW, I had a reaction that I was more scared for what AEW critics would think of this than how I actually thought of it. Because if you remember, if you're a subscriber to this channel, and you should be, if I do say so myself, or if you saw my review of WWE 2K Battlegrounds, then you'll see the obvious similarities. Very cartoonish look, doesn't look very simulation the way that the mainline WWE 2K franchise does. And if you played Battlegrounds and you're like me and you're like, probably a waste of $50, this is not what you want to see. I think going in, I wanted to see simulation. I wanted to see AEW simulated in a video game so that I can play it. Now, that being said, just because the game looks cartoony like 2K Battlegrounds doesn't mean it's going to be anything like 2K Battlegrounds. Okay, 2K Battlegrounds is based on the basis of the WWE 2K franchise. AEW gets to build this game from the ground up using whatever Ukes wants to do and using a different engine. I mean, everything is different. So just because visually it's similar doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be similar to the actual game, right? And here's the reason I know. Because 2K Battlegrounds, when you looked at the release footage, when you looked at the trailers coming into that, 2K Battlegrounds had people flying up, 100 feet in the air and delivering pile drivers into alligators' mouths and, whatever, and stuff that is fun. A lot of people really like 2K Battlegrounds. But look at the actual gameplay that we're seeing here. We're not seeing, you're seeing sparks fly, but you're not seeing like, when Kenny Omega hits the V trigger, he doesn't like throw Jericho up 30 feet into the air and then jump up and knee his head off his shoulders. It's kind of a weird blend of a kind of cartoonish look, but what looks to be a more simulation style game. Again, other than the sparks, which may just be for dramatic effect in the trailer, what you're actually seeing is a pretty realistic looking gameplay experience. Again, Chris Jericho goes for the Judas effect, and it's not like all kinds of colors and, different camera angles and stuff like you see in Battlegrounds. It's a more simulation type presentation and what looks to be more simulation type gameplay, which I think is very unique, because when I first saw it, my first thought was, oh my god, we're gonna get 2K Battlegrounds but AEW, and I was kind of apprehensive, to say the least. But the more I looked at it, the more I thought about it, the more I said, no, you know what we could have? We could have a cartoonish style with a simulation gameplay, which is not something that we've really ever seen done, at least with the current consoles. The last time that I can remember something like that, where it's more cartoonish, the presentation, everything about the presentation is more cartoonish, but the gameplay is more simulation based, is actually WWF No Mercy, which is a game that Kenny Omega name dropped several times throughout this, and he's been saying openly for basically since he started working with AEW games, was that No Mercy was the driving force. The Aki engine in No Mercy was the driving force behind Kenny Omega wanting to make a video game. And when you play No Mercy, as I just did right before I made this review, what stands out to you immediately is there's a simulation aspect to it, but it also feels cartoony. It doesn't feel too real. It feels like wrestling. It's very hard to explain, but it feels like wrestling. Where wrestling is real to the extent that these are people, doing real acts of athleticism, but it's fake because they both know what they're doing. And so you can get more athleticism, you can get more amazing stuff that you'd never see like in the UFC, because they're on the same page and they're working together. And that's exactly what No Mercy feels like. And if that's the direction of this game, then I really think that they're on the right path here. Even though originally, just because, look, if 2K Battlegrounds hadn't happened and this shows up, then I'm thinking, oh my god, this is incredible. This is the first time we've seen this since All Stars. This is unlike anything we've ever seen on the current gen. Right? That's what's going through your heads. So don't let 2K Battlegrounds and how disappointed you may have been with that game color your opinion of what this game might be. I had a friend that I was talking to who said, well, this looks kind of cartoony. I prefer Wrestling Code. It looks more simulation. And look, Wrestling Code, if you haven't heard of that, that's a new wrestling game being developed by Virtual Basement, and it looks really promising. And maybe it is simulation, but from this game, what we've seen in the gameplay, I don't think there's a reason to believe that it's like 2K Battlegrounds where it's cartoony and stupid. I think this might be actually more simulation based than we might think. Watch through the trailer. There is nothing cartoony about the actual moves. The only cartoony thing is the character models. And if that was done to save budget on, doing all of the face scans and all the, the stuff that 2K and Ukes had to do to get a simulation look, if you're saving money on all that and you can put the money into GM mode or a better universe mode or, you know, better creation stuff, you know, things like that, then look, I'm all for it. I think, you know, presentation is presentation. And I think the graphical style of a game, if it's done well, my favorite graphical style in any game ever is Persona 5, which is cel shaded. So, you know, I'm not someone that needs the most realistic looking game. You know, I'm very willing to kind of step outside my comfort zone with that. One last thing that I want to mention, look in the trailer of Intergender Wrestling, where Hikaru Shida knees Kenny Omega's head off. That's very interesting. Obviously, it's going to be a point of differentiation. I have my own thoughts on intergender wrestling, and I won't get into them here because that's not what this video is about. But look, if you're into that, or if that's a huge selling point for you, something that you want to do in WWE 2K and you can't because they just haven't let you since, God, I don't know when, maybe since No Mercy or around that time. If that's a huge thing for you, you are going to be very, very happy with this. Last thing, it was kind of just tacked on at the end, and it didn't mean a ton to me because I didn't grow up playing No Mercy. I've had to go back to it very recently to actually experience it. But if you are someone who grew up playing No Mercy and you see Gaeta, the director of No Mercy, who's been developing wrestling games for a long time, you see this guy and you see his pedigree, you say, this is the kind of game that we're looking for. I think that means a lot more to you than it does for me, who again didn't grow up playing it. But I love No Mercy. I've really enjoyed playing it when I've actually gone back to it. So to me, again, if it's going to have the same style, that implies to me a cartoonish look, but a simulation feel. But a game that doesn't take itself too seriously, which I think is going to be the key for this, really. So all that being said, and again, if you didn't see this event, it's like 20 minutes long, go watch it. There's some really funny bits because Kenny Omega, Aubrey Edwards, Cody Rhodes, Britt Baker, I mean, they have great chemistry and they all work together with each other, obviously, a lot. So it's funny. If nothing else, it's a funny spectacle to watch. Bottom line here, we don't know when this game's coming out. I would expect it to not be, if it's in 2021, it's going to be holiday 2021, so I'm guessing it's going to be a year or more. And so with that being said, my expectations for it, I can't really set right now because we don't know what it will be. However, knowing the pedigree of Yuke's, knowing the pedigree of Gato, you know, behind this game, there's certainly going to be a lot of expectations, and AEW is stepping up to immediately take on not just Virtual Basement with Wrestling Code, they're stepping up, in my opinion, to take on WWE 2K. And while they may have Ukes, they may have a much more experienced developer, the reality is WWE 2K has a lot more money. 2K is a gigantic publisher, and so while we don't know who the publisher of this AEW game will ultimately be, unless it's EA, it's not going to be a publisher that has the pocketbook that 2K has. So, you know, I think it's hard to set expectations right now, but if it's the kind of game that doesn't take itself too seriously, the kind of game that looks cartoony but plays more simulation, if it's good for creators, that is the biggest thing that if anyone from AEW is watching, I don't think you are, but if you are, one thing you need to know, creators drive so much of the conversation behind your games, right? From my perspective as a creator, as a YouTube creator, not as a, you know, created wrestler type of creator, I'm not that talented. People still go back to 2K19 because of all the creations that are still possible there. 2K20 was an absolute disaster, but if the creations were a lot better, you'd see a lot more people soldiering through and waiting for the patches. Well, because the creations were so great on 2K19, from arena to championship to wrestlers, movesets, everything, because it was so great, you have people that are still there. I mean, my YouTube channel is entirely based around a series that happens on 2K19. So I am, you know, the number one advocate for, you know, have great creations. People will talk about your game. Creators will appreciate it, and it really will go a long way to, making people be a little bit more forgiving for any of the shortcomings, because there will be shortcomings. Everyone knows that. But having that ability to create, giving players more options, not fewer, that is the key for making a great wrestling game, in my opinion. Because if you just have the template, if you have your own AEW roster and you have like a story creator or a GM mode or something that allows players to tell their own stories, players will tell their own stories. They will, as long as the creation options are there, as long as that ability is there, players will tell their own stories. Give them the tools. And that's all players need. And you know what that does? That means that you don't have to release a game every single year. What it means is you can release a $20 DLC like every 6 months or something, maybe with new roster members, a graphical update, whatever you want. Players are going to pay for that, and you have bought yourself long-term player likability. That's what you have. Players will appreciate what you're doing. The trust between players and 2K right now has completely eroded to the point where I'm not sure it's ever going to come back. WWE could release the greatest wrestling game in history with 2K22, and I still don't think that trust will be there, because then there's going to be a 2K23. Well, when this AEW game comes out, you have an opportunity right now to earn trust with the entire player base, and just giving the player base the tools to create and tell stories. That will buy you all the trust in the world, and it means that you can step out, you can take risks, you don't have to release a game every year, or look, maybe you do, and if it continues to be great, that trust will continue to be there, whatever the case may be. But if you're looking to break the mold, giving players the tools that they want, thinking player first, thinking creator first. I don't mean YouTube creator like me, I mean just a random person who wants to make themselves in the video game and then play with themselves in the story mode. Thinking of that person, if you make that person an AEW fan by giving them this game, you are doing a great service to your game, to your business, to the wrestling side of it, really to the entire company, because it really starts with that. So AEW at this point has a blank slate. They have a great developer, they have a tremendous pedigree behind them, and if they give players and creators the tools to make themselves the best game ever. You don't have to make them the best game ever, they can make it themselves if you give us the tools. And if you do that, we may be seeing a new king of wrestling video games right now. All of this is too early to say, but maybe there's someone out there watching, or maybe there's a lot of you out there who think the same way I do, and we can speak both with our wallets and we can speak directly to AEW. AEW, I believe, will take into account what its fans say, because you only get one chance to make a first impression, and I believe that AEW takes that very seriously. So if there's anyone out there who is passionate about this, and I think a lot of us are, then any way that we can talk to AEW and let them know what we want, what we believe is going to make a successful game, maybe, just maybe, it will help AEW really change the game, no pun intended, when it comes to wrestling video games. Folks, thank you so much for watching as I ramble about a game that we've seen all of 10 seconds of, and I think we all hope that this game is as good as we will inevitably build it up to be in our own heads. Thanks once again for watching. Subscribe, catch all of GAW. We appreciate you.